Join the stars of the Ancient Aliens TV show, Eric Von Doniken, as he returns to Manchester after an amazing response to his last presentation. David Childress will guide you through the evidence left behind. Mike Barrow will take you to other worlds, where Nick Pope will present the real X-Files. Paula Harris will share incredible testimonies. It's time to believe and raise consciousness. Join like-minded souls on Saturday, June 23rd, 2018 for Awakening. What do you believe?
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online, you're now listening to The Kevin Moore Show. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined with my guest, Jason Gleaves. Now Jason has analysed a wide selection of worldwide UFO images throughout the decades, and carried out various photographic, video and image analysis on unidentified flying objects using the latest computer science technology and software. Now he joins me today to discuss his latest book, UFO Photos. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hi Kev, thanks for inviting me on.
Thanks for coming on, Jason. This was arranged through Philip Mantle, and I'm grateful for Philip to put us together. He's publishing your latest book, UFO Photos, Computer Analysis of Worldwide UFO Images Through the Decades. What led you to write this book then, Jason?
This book sort of came about, it was a sort of follow-on from my UFO pages. I've gone on Facebook and Twitter and all the different media. And it was just getting out. What I actually do is analyse photographs for people and myself with researching into ufology.
So what actually got you into ufology, Jason?
Trying to find answers, really, just like everybody else, because incidents that have happened to myself and family, friends, and etc. But my first sort of delving into ufology really was when I was younger, when I had a sighting with my sister when I was 7. I'd actually forgotten about the incident. It was only later, really, that my sister had mentioned it to me when I started all the UFO-only pages. And it sort of came back to me.
What was that incident?
Well, at the time, we were living in Liverpool at the time. It was Aintree. We were staying at my relative, and we just saw a bright light and a disc-shaped object. We were playing in the bedroom. We were about 7 years old at the time. My sister's a year older than me, and it was a bright light and a disc shape. It was before UFOs were really about and spoken about, so it was difficult to explain at the time what it was actually about. Because later on, likes of Star Wars and films like that, where people started to take notice of science fiction, only came out years later, so it was an unusual event, and I'd actually forgotten about it. It was my sister that recalled the incident to me, and then it slowly came back, sort of a memory.
Have you had any sort of want to sort of get any regression on that and to see what actually happened at that incident?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I just haven't really followed it up yet. I know I was going to approach Mary Rodwell at some point, see if she could help with it, but it's definitely in my future plans.
Right. Okay. That'll be interesting. You have to let us know what comes of that. I'm sure that will be fascinating. So, okay, now I believe that moving this on to your career, you were based at RAF COSFORD, the Air Force Base in the UK, and you had an incident in 1993 that propelled your interest then in ufology.
Yeah, it was RAF COSFORD is in the Midlands in the UK, and it's a training camp where they train armourers and other trades there. I was permanent staff there at the time, and I was on the base that night when it was a friend of mine who was in charge of the guard room at the time, the orderly corporal, and it's mentioned in more detail in the book, obviously. There was a young trainee who was on the actual guard post, which was over the airfield. Actual photographs of the actual guard post involved where it happened. And he basically saw a huge black triangular shaped object, jet black with lights and a low hum to it, that came down over the airfield, and it was described by many that saw it as the size of a battleship. It was huge, and the RAF police and all personnel, guard personnel, all saw it at the time, and it was also witnessed throughout the country by policemen that were on duty and civilians, and quite a few witnesses. It flew on from COSFORD, where it took off at high velocity, to RAF Shawbury, which is not that far away. Shawbury is another RAF base, and it's a helicopter base. I think it still is at the moment. And they had a on-duty air traffic controller, and they actually got a reading on their radar locks on this craft, and it was sighted coming in over the airfield there, and it was firing described as laser beams of light down towards the airfield as it was flying over slowly.
Wow, okay. And this was a colleague of yours that saw this object, this triangular object.
Yeah.
And what did you think when he just sort of described to you what he saw?
Well, he was still in the guard room at the time, but it was the guards and everybody else that saw it. I was just amazed, really, because I've always been interested, even before I got into doing the ufology. I've always liked science fiction later on, even after my first sighting that I had years ago. And I've always read likes of Arthur C. Clarke, books and magazines that he brought out, and watched his TV show, Unexplained magazines, etc. But when my friend explained it, really, it took quite a bit of goading to get it out of him, because he didn't really want to speak about it. It wasn't sort of really spoken about at the time. So when I finally got the full story out of him, it was certainly interesting.
How did you get the full story out of him?
Just by talking and over cups of tea, and slowly over months I got the full story, the full picture of what actually happened, because it was sort of, when it happened at the time, it wasn't really spoken about. People didn't want to sort of bring it up, and for obvious reasons. So it did take a good while to get the full story.
How far up of the chain of command did this incident go to?
To the top, I would have guessed. When you talk about ufology in UK and sightings, obviously Rendlesham Forest is the main case people bring up. But I think COSFORD's just as important, just for the fact of the evidence that is there. I've actually put the official government documents in the book that were released by the MOD under the UFO files, and obviously Nick Pope mentions it in his talks, etc. So it's quite up there with the rest of them. It's important, but it's not really spoken about too much.
Was your friend told not to talk about it?
I'm not too sure at the time, but I would have thought he probably would have been told not to bring, any details up regarding it, which is quite the normal thing at the minute for people to do that, bring up stories of what they've seen, etc. So, yeah, he probably was told not to say anything.
And again, your connection to Nick Pope, this COSFORD connection to Nick Pope. So he was in the Ministry of Defence in 1993, and this would have come across his desk when this incident happened.
Yeah. Well, he was involved the day after the incident happened, and he was obviously in charge of the UFO desk at Whitehall, and he would definitely would been involved with it, and the case would have been brought up through the chain of command, etc. So, and he does actually speak about it, and he did write a piece for me in the book regarding the aftermath of how he dealt with it, and everything dealing with the case itself.
And it's surprising, isn't it, that even Nick's able to talk about that as well?
Yeah, really. Yeah, since he come out of the Air Force, out of the ministry, working at Whitehall. Yeah, he does do quite a few talks now. I think he lives in America now, and he does actually have quite a few talks in the different UFO conferences around the world, really, and he does speak about it.
Incredible. So, where did you go from there? What was the catalyst? So that was a catalyst to get back into ufology, and where did your career path in ufology take you there as well?
Not really. It was after when I'd left and started reading more books and other things that had happened. Obviously, the bug had sort of bitten in then, and I needed to know more. But it's pretty much like everybody else, really, who has an encounter or something's happened in their life or had a sighting. You start to think and ask more questions. I think a lot more people are waking up now to what's actually going on in the world, etc. Richard Dreyfuss syndrome, the character out of Close Encounters, the Steven Spielberg film, really, because if anybody's ever watched that film and seen the way he acts when he has an encounter, it just becomes an obsession, and you just really need answers.
How did you get from doing the book to that incident? How did that path, where did that path form?
The book, like you said, was later. I mean, I started writing for other UFO. First of all, it was a lot of research, and I never stopped researching. To this day, that's all I seem to do. I watch an awful lot of YouTube videos. I look at every single case I can, because there's two sides to every story, I believe. And I generally, when I'm researching and I start digging deeper after one subject or topic, I generally find about 5 separate doors will open in all different directions, and it will go off all over the place. And it just becomes more questions. I mean, I do get an awful lot of answers as well. And I also help a lot of people in the background who come to me who have had experiences or sightings, and they've taken photographs and they need help to understand themselves, really, what they've seen or experienced. Obviously, confidentiality is a big thing, and if they don't want their name or anything brought forward, I do regard confidentiality quite high and protect them. But depending, they might have a high-profile job, etc., where it could affect their career if they spoke about it. But more and more people are speaking more and more about it, and obviously, when I've dug deeper and deeper into it, that's where my UFO page sort of came about, really, so people could see what I was looking at and find out for themselves and understand what they were looking at.
Okay. And how long did it take you to put together the UFO photos, the book?
A couple of months in total, really, but I did have an awful lot of information due writing for other books and magazines. I've wrote articles for Phenomenon magazine and with Steve Merrer. He does a brilliant job, Jackie Highway. And also the Outer Limits magazine with Chris Evers. So there's an awful lot going on. Obviously, Philip Mann has a lot of really good material, highly regarded by everybody. The book really wasn't too difficult because I already do an awful lot of that analysing of photographs for people anyway. And I've already wrote the second book already, so that'll be underway soon, I think.
So I'm going on your bio here. You're a self-taught, skilled graphic computer artist, illustrator, and you've combined your artistic ability techniques with modern-day approach to sort of using an analytical way of analysing UFO cases.
Yeah. I've always been interested in computers right through. I've done computer courses, numerous computer courses, like everybody else, really. And the analyst side really came about when I started looking at images and really just trying to understand them better before I actually put them onto a UFO page or posted them for everybody else to see. And obviously self-taught, I've just, as software has been introduced more and more, it's become easier and better to analyse photographs in more detail.
So what made the criteria for this book? What kind of criteria were you looking for photos?
Well, this book, I could have put so much in this book. Obviously, I was limited really to what I could put in it because you can with a book. I just really wanted to bring the book out as a layman term book, so anybody wanting to understand basically how you look at photographs, what you're looking at, misidentification, which is an awful big thing in ufology, misidentified objects, aircraft, birds, etc. And just bringing the book out was just a basic learning tool for everybody else, really, that you could sort of go back to and look and understand what you're looking at. And then also the other stories, I put my initial case, RAF COSFORD, in it, just really so people could understand I've been involved in experiences too. And then I needed really to start at the beginning. So the first ever UFO sighting, 1890, I think it was, in the US. So I can go into the photo analysis that way. And the only way I could really do it was to go by the decade. So 1 or 2 sightings to put in through 10 years, right the way through up to modern day. And but like I said, I could have put an awful lot more in the book, and there's so many good cases out there to go off from.
Okay, so you've sent us a number of pictures, which I'm really grateful for, so thank you. And these pictures are just some of the cases that are in the book. There's many, many more cases in the book, and pictures do say 1,000 words. So there's one picture here that was taken in the US in July 2007.
Yeah, that was the China Lake, Californian sighting. That was taken by an ex-military person actually working in the desert area where they were testing these UFOs. I say UFOs really because it was an unidentified flying object, but it could have been a secret covert military craft that they were testing. But I was actually sent photographs initially by Philip Mantle, who quite often sends me photographs to analyse for him. And it was sort of interesting, really, when I received them, because I just got the blank photographs with no real detail in it. So I sort of analysed it from the beginning. And it shows a metallic disc-shaped object craft of the desert area. And but basically, I just went into it like I do with everything, analysing the photographs, so you could look for the shadow and the sun reflections off the object in relation to other things. But the other interesting thing about the photograph, the helicopter that you can see, it's flying above it and around the area within the photographs, which is a Huey helicopter, and it's a US Marine weapon stationed at China Lake at the time, and I've managed to analyse and pretty much identify that helicopter. So I put that there in the book, and also with the analysis of the photographs. And I've also, with the separate different photographs I was given, what I tried to do an overlap, image overlap. So if they were, all the photographs were taken from the same position by the person or the witness who took the photographs, then if you overlay the photographs, one thing you can definitely prove is the object is moving, or it has moved, which I have done by overlaying two photographs together, and you can see the disc has actually gone smaller and further away from what the other object, the other photograph. So you can prove that it's moving.
And who took that photograph?
I was trying to look. I can't remember the top of my head who it was. Whether he was Keith. I think he was known as Keith Story in the book. I think he wanted to remain unnamed.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Which well, initially the story he gave is he was in the desert at the time. He took the photographs, then realised that he probably shouldn't have been there. Took the photographs, then hidden the actual footage and the camera, the actual film in the camera within the desert somewhere in that region, and then forgot about it for a while, went back later to retrieve it, and then obviously that's where the photographs came from.
So he knew what he had taken. I mean, they were in front of his eyes when he took this took these images. They weren't just something that appeared on the camera roll.
No, he knew what he was doing.
And this was military. This is a military base.
Yeah, in China Lake, in America, a vast area, and it's obviously a place where they would test probably secret equipment, etc. So obviously that's why they were flying, and that's probably why the military helicopter is seen actually flying overhead. You can see it in the photographs quite clear.
So you think this is reversed engineered, or you think this is something that was just that had appeared over a military base?
It's difficult to say. If, in my opinion, looking at the photographs and the way the helicopter's interacting with it, etc., it probably is a back-engineered craft of some description. anti-gravity of some, obviously, but I believe that the photographs are real. I do believe the object is there, but the determining whether, where, how, and what, the origin of the craft, that's really for everybody else to sort of come up with their own conclusion, really.
It's so difficult to put into words there. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are we looking at there? Who really did take that photo? It sounds that he buried it in the sand. I mean, it sounds so much out of a movie, doesn't it? But I think, again, it looks so foreign, doesn't it? And like nothing that we would ever build. And it is amazing. I will say that. So yeah, I guess this is for the reader to come up with their own answers as well, maybe.
Yeah, that's really what I actually put in the book. I actually bring the photographs that I feel people need to see and look at and make their own mind up. Everybody has an opinion to what they're seeing, and if they believe it to be real or wherever it's from, it's entirely up to them. I don't believe in the field of ufology. There are no experts in ufology because we're all looking for answers. We all might be an expert in a certain discipline of, maybe photography or, anything really. But people are always looking for answers, and it's up to them how they look and interpret what's in the book.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, the next bunch of 4 pictures that you've sent through, which is fascinating, is the UFO captured over the Lithuanian Parliament building in '91.
Yeah, that interesting. It was brought up. I'd actually seen it on a Discovery TV channel in the 1999, and it was explained, and it's actual video footage, which is a bit difficult to put in a book. But when you take frames from the actual original source footage, you can obviously see what they are in the book. And it was basically a wing shape, I can explain it as, with a central illuminated light source, power source, and it actually descended down upon the Parliament building, and it was during 1991, and it was filmed on the CCTV cameras, the cameras, and which covered the footage at the time, and it came down, seemed to rest on top of the building. And it was also captured another craft, similar description, over and around the area by local militia, Soviet militia, who actually took footage of it. And within the photographs, you can actually see it's actually extending out from the craft and back in, which I have actually put it on my YouTube channel, a footage of it. But again, it's difficult to put into a photograph, really, because some of the footage is better seen in its raw state, because you can get a better picture, a better idea of what you're seeing.
Yes, absolutely. And what is your take on this? What's your gut feeling tell you after the analysis?
Again, it's an opinion, but I think this probably is some type of, I don't know, extraterrestrial, not from this world sort of thing, craft. It could be anything really, but the way it was described on the TV show at the time, as it was on a UFO show, and they believed that it wasn't from this world. So I tend to go with that thought.
Okay, thank you. And, you know, obviously some of these cases are a bit dated that we've discussed so far. And then
Hmm.
there's a sort of newer case, I believe, in 2016, which was the Argentine pilot surprised by a UFO, which, you know, kind of buzzed over his aircraft that you look at as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, that's really interesting. Again, that's actual footage which is on my YouTube page, but putting it onto photographs, frames taken from the original raw, original source footage, and the pilot, obviously unnamed, was flying in his private jet, propelled aircraft, not jet, sorry, and you can see the propeller from the front from the angle of the photographs. And initially, he had sightings previously. So what he did this time, he actually took his mobile phone with him in the while he was flying, and when he saw these objects approaching, he started filming with his mobile phone, and that's why you can see the angle of the photograph, and the actual footage on the YouTube channel is in the way it is, because that's the way it was filmed. And what happened, he saw these two approach from his port side of his aircraft at high velocity, and flew directly in front of his aircraft, then did a large loop round to the right, and then came back again, both in front of his aircraft. You can see graphs, obviously, the UFOs, and I've tried to catch them because they were traveling so fast. It's difficult to work with what you've got in the footage sometimes, but you can definitely see a structured objects there that have flown right in front of him.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it?
Um,
Why did you choose this picture? Why this bit of video to analyze to put into the book as well?
it's just so compelling, really. I tried to pick in the book, like I said, I could have picked so many different photographs to analyse and put forward, but this one really got my attention, being craft, and it's so clear the way you can see them in flying around in front of it, the aircraft, and back around. And he's also had other sightings, but it's just really, you really do need to see it itself, because you can actually see the true flight path of the craft as they, dangerously fly in front of his aircraft.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's so many more than this. I mean, there's so much material that's being released nowadays, isn't there? From
Yeah.
different government bodies as well.
Well, you've got the Tom DeLonge to the Stars Academy in the US. They're actually releasing footage, gun footage now, and it's via the military. So it's authentic footage. I mean, a lot of the footage has been around quite a while, but it's from a F-16, and it's the actual recorded footage of unidentified objects flying, and they've managed to lock on to these objects, and you can hear the pilots obviously get what they're seeing, and it's certainly interesting.
And what is your take on what this phenomena is? I mean, what's after these many years of studying it, what's your sort of take on what this potentially might be?
Well, I believe that we are being visited by extraterrestrials, and I also believe they've been here for a long time, living underground in bases, under the oceans, etc. And I also believe we're visited by numerous craft just really to observe the Earth and the humans, etc. Really, were a bit like a zoo, really. Just like we would go to a zoo to see animals, I think other races would visit the Earth to see how we live and what we do and how we're progressing. But I do believe that there's a small percentage of sightings that are seen and shown in footage and on photographs. They are real, and when you dig deep in, I mean, I'm working on quite a few things in the background with people who take photographs of entities and extraterrestrials, and they're having contact, and they're fascinating to see. But then, on the other hand, I do think a lot of sightings are explainable. They are misidentified, and it's only really understanding what you're seeing. You can actually explain to people what they think they're seeing. I also think sightings are secret, covert craft, military, that they don't want you to see, or they are being seen. And when somebody comes forward saying they've seen a UFO, meaning the craft, and explain to it, they don't know what they've seen, because obviously, again, UFO means unidentified flying object. This suits the military around the world because it's the perfect cover story for them. They don't have to explain what they're flying. It's already explained for them by somebody saying they've seen a UFO.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the other pictures that you sent through is, I think it's a Men in Black picture.
Yeah, that was, I'm going to be putting that in my next book. That really is an incident that happened with my father when he was a young boy in Liverpool, and I can't remember his age now. At the time, he was young at the time, and he was playing in the hallway of his house where he lived, and my nan and uncle were in the other room, and he used to play in the hallway as you did with toys, etc. And he actually witnessed what he told me. A man actually walked through the front door in front of him, and over time, my father's ex-military himself, and he didn't really speak about this sort of thing much. And with me getting into ufology and talking about it more, he sort of come forward and sort of gave me the information on what he'd seen. And over years, me speaking with him, I've managed to get out a pretty good description, because he didn't understand what Men in Black was, or that sort of thing related to ufology. And that's what he said. He had a dark suit on with a hat, like a trilby style hat. And when he walked through the door, he actually beckoned my father to follow him up the stairs, which obviously he didn't. And he ran back into the living room where my relatives were. And when he came back, the man had gone.
Wow. Okay, that's a bit of a strange experience, isn't it? How old was he again?
Yeah. I think he was about 5 at the time, maybe older, but that's the illustration I came up with the story and the facts and etc. that he gave me.
Right. That's very unusual, isn't it?
Mm.
Very unusual.
Yeah.
Why are you including that in the second book?
Well, the second book, I'm going to be doing it on close encounters of all kinds, where actually close encounters, they're actually put under a couple of different categories. There's 7 separate categories, but without going into more depth at the minute, it's close encounters of the first kind, second kind, third kind, so on up to 7. And I've actually started writing and investigating different encounters under those subheadings that I'm going to be putting into a book. So I've tried to explain really what those are, and then put cases to them to try and explain to people the different categories and what they mean.
Excellent. Okay, well that's going to be an amazing book. And I guess that's a natural continuation of your work as well, to be honest with you. So
Yeah.
there's many other pictures in this book, and one that was fascinating as well was the pictures of the two UFOs that appear outside a rocket launch in India in 2015.
Yeah, that I don't think that's in the book, but I think it's on my page, my UFO page. Again, a lot of launches through NASA, especially. I've done quite a few videos of the International Space Station where there's orbs and craft that have actually been seen and photographed, and have enhanced the photographs and put them on there. There is also ex-astronauts who have gone up over missions, especially going to the moon, etc. Whether you believe we went to the moon or not, that's another discussion on its own. But astronauts, pilots, test pilots, for a long time now have been reporting seeing craft, unidentified craft, around their spacecraft while they've been in orbit and doing their usual business.
Yeah, I mean, it's not every astronaut that gets to witness a UFO. Do you think we've got to be in the state of mind of being open to wanting to see it?
I don't think their intention with astronauts when they go up there is to that. Maybe they're briefed on it before they go, because I do believe governments around the world know an awful lot more than we know, and I'm sure it's part of their briefing. I think really it's to do with one sort of thing that I sort of go down the road is a lot of sightings that I've investigated and looked at and researched into are people who are musicians, etc. So it's open to them, and really it's to do with frequencies, and maybe that's to do with the music and the way the artists are. It's brought out in them, so they can. I read, it's something I'm sort of going down the route of digging deeper, but I do believe it's to do with frequencies.
That's interesting. Okay.
Interesting.
And obviously, you've looked at photos of ancient sites as well?
Yeah, I go back into that. I go back over quite a few things, especially if you go over past books I've read of Eric van Daniken, etc., ancient aliens types of things. That it's certainly interesting, and it's one avenue when you look into ufology. With ufology is like a huge umbrella, really. It's just the word ufology, and then it goes off into subcategories which break up again. It's all related in some way, and if you look at old ancient scripts or depictions, it's there. You can see UFOs in them, or they've actually been mentioned in manuscripts, etc. I was lucky enough last year to be invited to the BAFTAs when Eric van Daniken was over giving his speech, and he's been in ufology for quite some number of years now. And he explained about the new chamber they discovered in the Great Pyramid in Egypt and the Nazca lines in Peru, etc. All interesting, riveting to listen to as well.
Yeah. Do you think, where do you think contact will happen in your lifetime? Do you think it will do?
Yeah, definitely. I believe disclosure is not too far away now. If you speak to lots of people in ufology in general, and I know quite a few people, and we're all on different opinions. Everyone's got a different approach to it, but everyone really has got the same idea. They want contact. They want the truth out. I believe we've been visited and still being visited and have been visited for an awful long time. But I do believe disclosure isn't that far off, especially with this new footage that's being released by To the Stars Academy. Whether you believe it's the right approach, I don't know. Some people are not going to believe contact until a newsreader on a mainstream media channel, BBC, ITV, etc., Sky, CNN, around the world, actually sit in front of you, a main news reading, breaking news that we are having contact with extraterrestrials. They won't believe it until then.
What do you think it would do to us as the human race to have that contact?
It's going to enlighten. It's going to enlighten everybody to what we've missed, what really we should be. If they turn up and land on the White House lawn, it's going to make people sit up and say, we're not alone in the universe. We never have been. Our history has been not necessarily been lied to. You could say that, but it's been twisted to not the truth, what the truth actually is. The only thing really, when they do come or make themselves known, whoever they are, whichever race they are, they're going to start asking questions. The populace are going to say, well, how are they powering their craft? They're obviously not using fossil fuels, petrol, etc., gas. They're obviously running on a free energy device. So why are we using petrol and gas and etc.? There's been no need for it. It's been suppressed. And then religion again. It's going to change the face because we're not alone. Whether you believe in God and everything, I don't want to offend anybody because everyone has their own beliefs. But it's going to make people ask a whole set of new questions.
Yes, that is very true. And I guess your future plans is your next book that you're going to be bringing out, and
yeah. Obviously, as we discussed, that's in the pipeline, and I've also been working with a few people in the background. I never stop really. There's always photographs to analyse for people. I've done a lot of work for people, Tony Toppin, and done a lot of work for him. Other people, there's bases, there's Project, there's Project Camelot with Kerry Cassidy. There's so many to mention really, but I've also been dealing really and helping out as Peter Maxwell Slattery and Sloretta, his partner in Australia, who are having contacts with extraterrestrials and sightings, and his footage is really, really good. And I've just been part of a documentary they've done that will soon be out on Netflix. And I'm also now working with a guy he's been having contacts with extraterrestrials, etc. James Gilliland in Oregon, US. He has quite a few people that follow him, and his footage, pictures and video, I've been analysing those for him, and hopefully that's going to be a project that's coming out soon.
Well, it's been absolutely fascinating having you on, Jason, and I really, really do appreciate you giving us your time right now as well. And I just want to thank you for what you're doing for Ufology as well, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure. You just really need to get the truth out to people. That's basically, it's not about me or my pages or anything. It's about getting the truth out to people so they can understand what they're seeing, what they're experiencing. And I'm always here to help anybody that needs help.
Well, Jason Gleaves, just thank you so much.
Thank you, Kev.